Pardon me. The Parsha of the week is Parshas Teitse. I'm sure you're all aware of. Teitse v'milchoma alevecha, which means when you step out to wage war upon your enemies. That's the first mitzvah. And as you probably noticed already, and I can tell you to the very end of the Parsha, this Parsha is saturated with mitzvahs. Every posuk is another mitzvah. It's interesting. As I mentioned, I think by last week also, in this Parsha also we could see clearly the continuity of the whole Parsha from the beginning to the end, where at the very end, the very last mitzvah of the Parsha, which we haven't come yet to, but you may know, is the mitzvah of Zechiras Amalek, to remember what Amalek has done to us, and the mitzvah, the obligation that the Rebbe has put upon us to eradicate Amalek. Again, I ask anyone who doesn't understand something that I say, please stop right away, stop me, and I'll explain. Because the idea is that I shouldn't speak. The idea is that you should understand. And if I speak and you don't understand, then I'm wasting my time. So we could see, you go out to war. That's the beginning of the Parsha. And then the end of the Parsha is the mitzvah of eternal war with Amalek, to the point where he would be completely eradicated. We will touch on hopefully several of the mitzvahs, but we're not in a rush. We'll first talk primarily on the first inyan in the Parsha. The simple thing is what you learned already. And the Torah says, if you go out to war upon your enemies, and Hashem Elokecha, Hashem your God, will render them, will give them over into your hand, and so forth. There's a mitzvah of how you should deal with in war and so forth. So the interesting thing that catches our eye is the pasuk says, you go out to wage war, which means that you are the one who has to go and wage war. You have to go yourself, get your weapons ready, train yourself, and go and wage war. But then the pasuk says that you should know that when you are victorious, it is that Hashem had rendered them into your hand. If Hashem has rendered them into your hand, so why do you need to go to war? We know that when Eden came out of Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, chased after us all the way to the Yam Suf. Then Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eden, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go out to war. You don't have to face them. You don't have to run. You don't have to do anything. Hashem is conducting the war completely on his own. And you just stand there and watch. Observe what's going on, what's happening. And that's exactly what happened. They went into the sea, into the Red Sea. The Egyptians followed them. The waters came back and drowned. There was no contact between the Eden and the Mitzrayim at all. But that was early on when we first came out of Mitzrayim. for subsequent occasions, for subsequent wars, Moshe Rabbeinu is telling to the Eden, but this is not what's going to happen all the time. Ultimately, you have to go out and wage war.
You say because this here is a Mechanis Lashut, that's why you have to go by yourself?
I'm sorry?
Because here we talk about the Mechanis Lashut, so that's why it's different?
No, Mechanis Mitzvah, they also have to go out to war. Mechanis Lashut is because it's talking about Yisrael Shivyo, there was going to be prisoners, but the waging war is always, they have to do it. So, back to the question. If Hashem is the one who is doing it, why are we instructed to do it also? And then there is another expression in the Pasuk that also catches our eye if we are careful, when it says, Teitse la milchomo al eivecha. Al eivecha means upon, on top of your enemy. But you are not on top until you subdue them. When you first go out to war, you're engaging them. So you're going to war with your enemy, not on top. You're not on top. You can't start boasting that you're on top when you're first going out to war. In simple terms, what this is telling us, that when we go out to war, it's obligatory that we go out to war, which we'll discuss the background and the reason for that. We have to go out to war. But we have to go out to war with the recognition that we are relying really on God's assistance, that He will help us, and He will render them to us. And this is the meaning of Alevech. If you go out to war and you think it's army facing an army, then you cannot think of yourself being on top of them. Then you have to go through the whole process. When you know that you have Hashem with you, and that's the basis for you going out to war, then when you first start your war, you're already alevech, you're already on top. And if you go out to war with this recognition, then Hashem actually will render them into your hand. If you go out to war and you think that this is what's called koichi v'oisim yodi, that this depends on my own strength, then we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But if you go out to war, aloivecha, with this approach, because you are confident in Hashem's help, then it will be on Hashem will actually render them into your hand. This is the simple pshat in the pasuk. Everything in the Torah, and in this particular aspect, very clearly and obviously, is an eternal directive. It's not only when you didn't have to go to war, in the simple sense of the word, but it refers to every individual Eid, to all of us over here. We're all in the midst of a war. Each one, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, that each one of us possesses two powers within us, two nefoshes, that are facing down each other all the time. and they are at war with each other. And you have to engage in this war. And when you engage in this war, the Alter Rebbe also explains, which you may have learned already, the war is between the Nefesh Olekis and the Nefesh Abahamis, between the godly soul and the animal soul. Everything that a person encounters, he immediately has two opinions, two attitudes. He has a godly view of it, and he has an animalistic view of it. He has a Yetzer Tov, and he has a Yetzer Hara. And thus, there is this confrontation. And the Torah is telling us, you should know, just as when you go out, when you go out to war, like, if there is an enemy, and he is standing over there, ready to attack, don't fool yourself that he is really your friend. He's not your friend. He is your enemy. You would think this is a joke. You know, so why would you fool yourself to think that he is your friend? But in today's world, we see that there are many people who try to fool themselves that the enemy is a friend. So this whole thing has been now substantiated. Yes, such an idea is possible. And the same thing, particularly for us, we have to understand that these two opinions, one would think, hey, I feel like this, I feel like this, so it's both me. So which one is my friend, which one is my enemy? They're both me. So the Torah is telling you, you should know that one is your friend and the other one is your enemy. The friend is trying to build you up and to elevate you. And the enemy is trying to drag you down and to destroy you. This phenomenon, even though it repeats itself so many times, nevertheless, we still need convincing. If a person follows and he gives in to the Yetzer Hara, says, well, it's my Yetzer Hara, he's my friend, he enjoys this, let me give him. After a while, he recognizes, he realizes that is destroying his life. And then he regrets, and he feels like, well, he wasted he's destroyed his life. He realizes after a while where it's dragging him to the point where it's actually destroying him. It presented itself to him as a friend. Oh, this is going to be pleasant, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to be successful, whatever it is. But in fact, it's an enemy. And the Torah is telling you that we should be wise ahead of time and identify the enemy, even though it means that I have to wage war. And war is not a pleasant thing. Nobody wants to be in war. You want to be in peace. So here's how the Torah described this whole thing. You have to recognize and identify that this is an enemy. But you also should remember that in fact you have the strength to face this enemy down. You're able to fight him because Hashem is with you. The Nefesh Elokis, the godly soul, has a godly quality to it, and it's able to overcome every obstacle. So you're absolutely able to face it down. What happens when you face the enemy? What happens when you make a stand? All you have to do is go out. Teitse, you go out, and you're already on top of your enemy.
I just want to speak to Moscovitch. I don't see him here.
Moscovitch, not in the room right now.
Is he here?
Yeah.
No, he's not here. There's a Russian elderly gentleman. That's his name? Chaim. Yeah, where? He's not here. I'll check the kitchen. Thank you.
So you're waging war, and you have to stand up, and you have to fight with yourself, and hold off, and say, look, and hold yourself. Sometimes you have to really use a lot of willpower to fight it off. But here is what happens after that. This is what the important thing that Torah is telling you. Sometimes it appears to us that we are fighting this war day after day after day, and it's all nothing happens. Yes, I'm fighting it off, but the enemy still keeps coming back. So the Torah tells you and assures you, this Mishava I'm going to discuss a little bit, that if you stand up to it, ultimately Hashem will render the enemy into your hand. You will be in control, and you will ultimately be the boss. This war that we wage, that we have internal war between Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Abahamis, between the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, it's a very unique war. It's not like the war with Amalek, where you're supposed to eradicate and destroy. Because we're not supposed to eradicate and destroy. We're supposed to hold off, not allow the Yetzer Hara to infringe and to give us and to take us into his domain. Hold off. Control him. But you don't have to destroy anything. It's not a war for destruction. It's a war for containment, because everything that Rebbeinu made, even the Yetzer Hara, also has a purpose. But we have to contain them. And this is why he keeps on coming back and coming back, because it's not that we just have to hold him off, not destroy anything in our personality or anything like that. Not try to go under the skin and, so to speak, and change our personalities. We just have to stand up strong and say, this is right, this is wrong, I'm going to do the right, and I'm not going to do wrong. What happens at the end? At the end, what happens is Hashem submits. Hashem renders, gives the enemy back into your hand, where you become in control over the Yetzer Hara. Where you actually then in a position where you use, so to speak, the powers of the Nefesh Abahamis, and you use it for good purpose. not destroying. Destruction is not the point of this war. The point of this war is confrontation between the nefesh elokis and between the Jew and the toiv, godliness, and the opposite. But ultimately, the idea is not to destroy. The idea is to contain, subdue, and then use it for good purposes.
What about Bainani or Tzadiki? Not Bainani, Tzadiki.
Well,
They don't have this war.
the tzaddik also uses the strength, the powers of the nefesh habahamis for good. The difference between the Bainani and the tzaddik and the Rosha is to what extent the nefesh habahamis is submissive. You know what submissive? Has given in. Like I said, the enemy comes back and he starts attacking you again. And still, the next day you still want to do the same thing. Next day again the same thing. That's in the Bainani. By a tzaddik, he does not. He no longer wants to do the wrong thing. But he is still, the tzaddik still can do things in this physical world, in which he uses his body, and the nefesh habahamis. Except the nefesh habahamis is now submissive to the nefesh elokis. It obeys what the nefesh elokis tells. He has to eat. A tzaddik has to eat, but he eats only in the proper way. So that ultimately we can come out of this war 100% ahead. In other words, it's not a bloody war. It's not a war of destruction. We come out of this war completely complemented with all the wealth and all the spoils intact. You know what spoils are? You know what you get from war. Everything, we take everything back with us. So that later on, we're talking about us here in the yeshiva, later on when you go out of the yeshiva, you go out into the world, then it's a real Teitse l'milchama, you go out in the world, you don't get lost. You don't get lost. You know how to use things in the world in the proper way. This is real victory. This is the pshat that Hashem has rendered the enemy into your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Even for someone that doesn't achieve the level of Bainani, he can also be in the level that Hashem rendered him into his hand, or we're talking about being a Bainani already?
No. Everyone who makes a stand, who wages this war, has a certain amount of victory. If you become a Bainani, that's a complete madrega. But everyone who wages this war has the power to control himself. And he will be alevecha, he is on top of the world. He's on top. The world doesn't dictate to him, he dictates to the world. He goes out to work, he goes out to look for a job, and you offer him a brilliant, good job, but Saturday you can have off, but Friday night you can't leave early. You can't. You have to be here till 7 o'clock Friday night. And he stands up and he says, in that case, I can't accept the job. You don't think that's war? That's war. You think, for us, it's a minor thing. It's a major thing sometimes. But you have to have the strength to do that. That's because we are really on top of it, on top of the world. the same thing in a different phase of our work here. In learning, we try to, if I use that expression, break our heads, try to break through and to understand a piece of Gemara, try to understand a piece of Tanya, and we break our heads. And day in, day out, day in, day out. So the Torah assures us, you may not notice the progress that you're making, because every day you still have to come back and start working and finding yourself. And you say, look, it's boring, I'm working on the words and working on putting the sentences together. It's not for me. I'm an adult, individual, and intelligent person. I want to get down to the meat. You may not even notice the progress, but after a while you turn around and all of a sudden you don't recognize yourself. Right, Shnei Zalman? You don't recognize yourself. All of a sudden things begin to open up. All of a sudden, oh yeah, makes sense. There are breakthroughs. I've come in, I've entered the palace. This is the pshat. Unesonei Hashem Elokecha b'yodach. We think, it seems to us, not we think, it seems to us that our labor, okay, so I learned another word, okay, oh, big deal, I have another word. I learned another piece of, another line, also I have another line. We're counting the lines and the words. That's not what happens. That's not what happens. This is accomplished in
Just stretching a little bit. Not anymore though. Never again.
This is accomplished. This is, accomplished in a state of hard work. This hard work changes and breaks through the core, the hard core, the covering, the coarse skin of the nefesh, and it reveals a quality in the person that you didn't know about it, that you didn't even you had. You didn't even know that you had. And all of a sudden, things begin to make sense, and begin to find their proper place in my mind and in heart. That's because you were at war. You weren't just, placating and doing nice things. And war, there is the spoils. You conquer a whole area. It becomes yours all of a sudden. So you learn one word and you think all I did is learn one word. It's not true. It's a breakthrough. Everything you do in this situation, in this manner, is a breakthrough. You hold off another day, it's another breakthrough. You hold off another day, it's another breakthrough. Until the wall melts and your eyes open up. And you begin to feel at home. It makes sense. This is an important, very important message to understand and to remember. A war goes on and goes on and goes on. And at first, while the war is going on, it seems endless. But it ends. And when it ends, all of a sudden, the sun shines brightly. When it's a breakthrough. Don't worry, there's another war coming up after that. But that's in a different plateau, on a different level. But this is how we do work over here. And you know something? This is how we do work throughout our lifetime. We are constantly, with Hashem's help, growing, constantly confronting our own nefesh habahamis. And with Hashem's help, we have breakthroughs. It takes a lot of effort, but it very much pays off. Very much pays off. Ultimately, as I mentioned before, this all leads to accomplishing the end of all wars, where Hashem helps us and we eradicate Amalek. Amalek is at the very end of the Parsha. That all the effort that this Parsha talks about, which we'll mention a few other things, ultimately leads to victory over Amalek. Now, who is Amalek? The story of Amalek you're all familiar with. Briefly, this was a nation, descendants of Esau, who were the first ones to come out and confront Yidden after they came out of Mitzrayim. And it was really an amazing and really a phenomenal situation, because this was at a time when the whole world stood in awe of the Jewish people. Tremble. The Eden came out of Mitzrayim miraculously, with 10 plagues, all kinds of miracles. And then, on top of it all, the Yam Suf split. The Yam Suf split, the sea split. What does that mean? There's nothing in their way. Nothing can stop them. The sea split. Comes this little Amalek, and he says, I'm going to wage war with them. And what was the purpose of his waging war with them? Did he hope to accomplish anything? Did he hope to subdue or be victorious? He had absolutely no hope of it. Nothing. Huh? Suicide. He had no hope to accomplish anything. What was the Amalek? The Amalek had such innate, such deep hatred for Yidden, that all I want is to show the world that you can still fight the Yidden. You don't have to be such respect, such all. Nothing else. He was completely destroyed. He was completely subdued. That he accomplished his thing. He accomplished his thing. That's Amalek. It's hard to believe, but this was Amalek then, and this Amalek follows us throughout all the generations, throughout the years. And this Amalek is actually implanted inside our own souls. Amalek is a klipa that also is active within our own nefesh habahamis. And what is this klipa? This klipa is something which we have to understand very well. This is that little voice in the person that no matter what the situation is, he may be on a high, he may be very successful, doing very well and very happy, and then from the side comes a creeping feeling. Don't be so sure of yourself. Are you sure this is the right thing? Are you sure you know what you're doing? This accomplishes nothing. He's got no arguments, nothing to counter his view, just to just to throw a monkey wrench. That is something which attacks us all the time. This is what we have to ultimately eradicate. Once this is eradicated, which is going to be ultimately at the end of time, before my Mashiach, this is when we are free of the Yetzer Hara. Because this is the first approach that the Yetzer Hara has. When you're sitting and learning and davening and things are going well, it's impenetrable. Nobody can break through this whole edifice. The only way to break through is just to throw a little doubt. The guy says, "You're doing very well, I'm not opposing you," but are you sure? That's all that's needed. And that weakens the whole structure. So the Torah assures us and says that if you stand up to the enemy, so gesund, eventually you will be successful in getting rid of this Amalek. And then you are in totally different ground. That really is leading you to Mashiach.
Fight with Amalek, this small part of us, or this is work of Mashiach?
Sorry? Yeah.
Work of Mashiach?
Well,
Kill
this
part.
ultimately, this is the Mashiach within us. Each one of us has a little spark of Mashiach.
We have two wars between Nefesh Abrahamis and Nefesh Amalekis, and between Amalek and Mashiach in us.
No, it's the same one. We have a covert war and overt war. You know what the difference is? You know? Everybody knows the terminology? Covert war and overt war.
Covert.
One is internal, one is external.
Right. Covert war, an overt war is an enemy who comes, says, declares a war. I want to come take over your property. That's overt. This is the wars that we constantly waging. I don't want to daven. I don't want to learn. I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to do all kinds of different things. He comes right out. I want to sleep. I want to play ball. Whatever it is. I don't want to do what I need to do. You're shaking your head?
No, this sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Okay.
I identify.
That's the overt war. We have to stand up to this overt war. We have to stand up, as we said, not destroy, but stand up to it and control it. Then there is a covert war. A covert war is very quiet, under the shadow.
Trojan horse.
The Trojan horse is only the invasion means. This is not. This is he is not very covert. Covert is a very small, quiet voice. He doesn't say, fight it, don't go there. He doesn't say anything like this. All he says is, are you sure you want to do that? That's all. What do you need to do? Are you sure? Doesn't say don't get up in the morning. No, that's covert. That's overt. When he says, are you sure you have to do it? Maybe you can get away with it. That's covert. That's a Amalek. That's the guy who does not have a real leg to stand on. He's got nothing to say. He's got no real argument. But he has got this approach, this stealth approach to to weaken your resolve. What are you getting so excited about? You're so excited. You accomplished this. Tomorrow you'll forget it. Whatever means he's got. That's Amalek. And that guy, we really have to destroy. That's the guy we have to destroy. We must not allow doubt to seep in. If I have a question, I have a question. But doubt coming from nowhere. Why are you doubting? No, I don't know why I'm doubting. I'm just not sure. That's a moment. If you have a question, ask the question. He doesn't have a question. He comes in stealth.
He comes in what?
In stealth. Stealth means hidden in a quiet way. What?
Sort of like the lion that crouches. Very similar.
The Trojan horse and the lion, these are not good examples because a lion only crawls up at a certain point, but then afterwards he goes and he jumps straight at his prey. This guy never. All he does is weaken you. All he does is weaken you. And then you become vulnerable to all enemies from all sides.
So he opens the door for the other Yetzirah.
That's
the
right.
common Yetzirah.
That's right. He just weakens you. The one biggest principle that we have to get from Torah is to have a clear, very clear view and recognition of the truth of the Torah. The Torah and our mind and our heart should stick together, should cleave. And when you start prying it open, breaking, putting in doubt, it doesn't allow a person to come right out to it. And then whatever he does, he's always has doubt. Should I be doing this now? Maybe I should be doing this now. Maybe I should be doing this now. It's a real guy. We have to know that this is Mamash Amalek. This is not a guy that you have to deal with. You don't have to wage war, you have to destroy him. You have to completely ignore. You have to tell yourself, if I have a question, so what is the question? Why do I have a doubt? If I don't have a reason for doubt, then there's no doubt. That's the important thing to remember. That's at the end of the whole process, at the end of Teitse and Milchomo and all the other things, you come to the point where you destroy Amalek. In similar manner, let us, another mitzvah in this parsha. The mitzvah of Micah, which you also learned already, right? Kisivna bayis chodosh.
Fence on the roof.
Yeah, a fence around the roof. A fence on the roof. You want me to say something? No.
Today's fitness, no?
Huh?
This is the first passing today.
Oh, today's parsha, okay. Kisivna bayis chodosh, which is from Micah legageko. You should make a fence around your roof. There shouldn't be no blood in your house. That the one who falls would fall down and he would get hurt. So here there are, again, in the Torah, it seems a simple pasuk, but if you look more closely, you see that there are a lot of nuances here. Hints that reveal completely something different. First of all, it says, you see in the bayis chodosh, you buy and build a new house. What does a new house have to do with this? It has to do, very simply, if you have a house that has a roof, and it doesn't have a fence, you're obligated to put a fence. Whether it's a new house or not a new house is immaterial. That mitzvah has nothing to do with it. And then it says, Ki yipol hanoifel mimenu. What does that mean? Ki yipol hanoifel. Did you learn this part?
A faller will fall off it, right?
No, not the faller. The one who falls. Hanoifel means the one who falls will fall. What does it mean, the one who falls will fall? Baruch I'm middle of class. Okay. If you're preventing him from falling, so he's not a faller. He's not going to fall. If he falls, so you can't. A mark is not going to help him anymore.
Situation with Shkana this guy has to fall for some risk, right? You still want to be yours.
Right. The Gemara talks about it and says Hanoifel does not mean one who falls, but one who is due to fall, because he has done some other thing that he deserves to fall. And the Torah says he shouldn't fall in your house.
You said the Lashon is one who is falling will fall?
Yeah. So it's true that halachically this is the way it's explained. But the Rebbe in the Sikha points out that's fine in halacha. But in Pshuta Shel Mikra,
I didn't understand the question so much. What's the question?
it says Ki yipoil hanoifel mimenu. Okay. The word hanoifel means the one who is falling down, who is falling. Yipoil means he will fall. So if he is falling, he's already falling. He's not going to fall anymore if he's fell already. And if he fell, the fence around your roof is not going to do anything for him. Right? What means ki yipol hanoifel, that the faller, the one who is falling will fall. If he is falling, he will not fall anymore. He is never fallen. So the explanation that the Rebbe gives in the Sikha is Kisivne Bayis Chodosh. You build a new home. The Rebbe in the Sikha specifically speaks about one getting married, he's building a new home. But it's not pertaining only to that. It pertains to everything that we do. Like we pointed out, that our avodah on a constant basis is, as the Pasuk says, it's a milchama. You go out to war. Which means that you're constantly confronted with an opposition. You have a Yetzer Hara, and you have to break through the Yetzer Hara. When you have to break through, that means that every time that you make a breakthrough, it's called Chodosh. It's a new creation. It wasn't there before. There is nothing that comes to us easy in Avodas Hashem. It's always a milchama, it's always an effort. Why? Because this is our job, to create and to bring this godliness in a place where it isn't, where it's not revealed. Just like when you build a house, you take a piece of land. The piece of land, as far, you don't even know. It could be the piece of land is not even the way the contours of the land. It has rocks and it has mountains, hills. Before you even can start building, you have to do some earth moving. change the entire plane, the base. Then you have to start digging into the ground to create a base, a foundation. Then you first can start building. You can't start building a house. You have to make the possibility, you have to make the facility to build a house. This is what our avodah consists of. You say, okay, the Chumash is there, the Gemara is there, so down and learn. Not so simple. Not so simple. We all know it. Not so simple. The Gemara is there, and the Chumash is there, and even though I know the words, but I still have to break through my own mind and my inclination and so forth to be able to understand and to relate to what I'm learning. Every one of us is building a new house. Every time we learn a word, like we said before, every time we understand something, that's a breakthrough. It's a new thing. It's a Bayis Chodesh. And when you're building a new house, then, as we said before, you have to get down on your knees, so to speak, and dig the ground. You can't just design the house, oh, I want this house to look like this. That's not going to happen. You have to start digging into the ground. You have to get involved in the dirty work. This refers to the confrontation that we said before. And this is what the Pasuk says. Ha-noifel. Noifel means one who is falling. Why is it called he is falling? Because he is no longer doing ruchnisdike things, involved in ruchnisdike ideas, but he is going down into the trenches and fighting his Yetzer Hara. That's a noifel. He is falling off. He is not standing above. He is going down into the trenches and dealing with the whatever you call, with the evil inclination, with the Yetzer Hara, with Nefesh Abamis. He's dealing with it. And the Pasuk says, what is the mitzvah consist in? The mitzvah consists in this, that yosiso make legager, that you make a fence. You make a fence means, in the general spectrum of things, it means that when a person has to go out into the world and he has to leave the yeshiva, go out into the world and go into dealing with the noifel, with the lower things, he has to have a marker, he has to have a limit, he has to have a fence. To what extent he gets involved. Otherwise he can fall and get swallowed up over there. He shouldn't fall in a hard fall, he should fall, so to speak, a soft fall. He should fall and be in control of what he is doing. That's in general the union. As far as our work over here is concerned, this is the union that while we have to go down, we must confront the Yetzer Hara, as I said, we have to fight. But nevertheless, from time to time, we have to sing a niggun. From time to time, we have to lift ourselves up. We have to do both. We have to know what noifel, we have to know what war we have to wage. We have to know what fight we are involved in. But we don't have to go there to give completely. And from time to time, we have to have a farbrengen. From time to time, we have to sing a nigin. And even while we're learning and while we are fighting to try to understand, we also have to have a certain sense of chayas, a certain sense of lebedigkeit, of ruchnis, of appreciation. Even when you are struggling to try to understand something and you're disappointed, don't be disappointed all the way. Don't become a heartful. Be sure you'll try it again in 5 minutes. But you have to have a biker. You have to have a miker lagagel. You have to have a fence. It shouldn't fall all the way. So that these two mitzvahs, Teitse la milchama, and Sivna Bayis Chodosh, these two inyonim give us a perspective on our full activities of how we are progressing here in the yeshiva, how we should deal with all our various difficulty, various moments, and then at the end, the reassurance, this is the most important thing, the reassurance that if we pursue this and we do what we need to do, we are going to be victorious. We are going to be vindicated. When we say, oh, I'm on top of my enemy, you will see that you are on top of your enemy. You will see that you are on top of your enemy. You will see that you got control of yourself, and you got control of your life, and that the world and the life ahead looks bright, and with Hashem's help, absolutely in a successful and in everything that you want to do, in anything that you want to do. And with this, I'm going to conclude to wish each one of us here success in your milchama with the Yetzer Hara, Alevecha, and the Maike. Remember the Maike. Remember that you have to be b'simcha, even though you are struggling. But don't let yourself fall down all the way. And if you see somebody falling down, tell him, give him a turk,
A what?
Give him a little tickle.
What was the word you used now?
A turkey is called.
A turkey.
Turkey, right. Turkey, right. We have to work hard, and we have to be b'simcha at the same time. And never be discouraged. Never be discouraged. Because discouragement, that's a molek. And that guy we have to eradicate. So, lots of hatzlacha. We're preparing now for Rosh Hashanah. We'll talk in Mitzvah Shem about Elul, hopefully next week. A little more. Time hatzlacha. Not for you?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You say
I'm occupied. Yeah.
You say that first off, that if he's called a neifel, which means he's already falling. I didn't understand. Is already falling, or is
he is falling?
Koyach he can fall?
No, he is falling, because in fact in avodah you have to fall down. You have to go down to the lower level to deal with it.
But not like falling, like losing. Falling, like
right.
Going down there to fight.
That's right.
And
So,
the net is the attitude with which he goes
That's right.
to fight.
It's not really falling.
What do you mean by that? To go down and deal
Going
with it?
down.
it's falling in relative to the madrega that he was before.
Dealing only with ruchnias now.
That's right.
What does that mean to go down and deal with it?
You have to take a look.
That's right. I didn't tell you.
Not you.
Go down with it, deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a beautiful, wonderful voice, well trained, right? Then you have to go to this guy who doesn't have a first understanding of what the whole thing is about, what music is. You have to convince him that, you're the right guy for this job. Right? So how are you going to convince him? You have to go down to his level and show him, you know how to say Amen, you know how to say Baruch, you know how to be in a choir, until you convince him that that's not your madriga. Your madriga is much higher. Do you understand the analogy?
No.
No, okay, forget it. The Neufel means
To realize that that's not
here,
where you belong down
oh
there?
no, here's a simple that you will all experience. Okay, you learned a piece of Gemara, and this piece of Gemara you chewed over and over and over until you really understand it. I really get the point. It's wonderful. Now I'm really thinking with my seichel. I really understand what it is. Okay? Okay, after you enjoy that experience, then you say, okay, let's go to the next piece. The next piece, I don't even begin to know how to read it. Now, from being in a state of intellectual experience, you go down to a state of a 5-year-old who's trying to read the words. That's an feeling. And you say, I can't do it. Look what I'm able to do, and look what I'm doing. You understand? That's a life. And we say, that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. We have to do it b'simcha. And eventually, you will break through this one also. And eventually, you will not have to go down so much because the words will become, you become much more familiar with it, and you will be able to learn at a much higher level. You won't be a noifer to that extent anymore.
So what's the fence?
I'm sorry?
What's the fence?
The fence is what I said, don't be disappointed. Don't be dejected, don't be unhappy. Don't fall down, stay up and accompany the hard work with simcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say it's important, or isn't it important to be disappointed somehow?
To be
like
what?
You're learning a mimer and you don't get something. Isn't it important to feel disappointed? Like sometimes you need to feel disappointed. Like you need to feel some kind of merirus. Like you need to feel I'm not doing it right, or you know that you did something wrong. You feel disappointed in your avodah, even if it's not a sin, but there is a disappointment.
I understand that there is a disappointment, but to say that disappointment is a positive, is something which you need, it's not true. What you need is the resolve. If I don't understand, I am going to understand, because disappointment, the next step after disappointment is forget it, I'll never make it. We don't want that.
But there are things that, like, okay, but sometimes you get to points where it really looks like you're not going to understand.
It looks like it, but you know that Teitse l'mechom alevecha v'nsonei Hashem alekecha. If you continue it, then you will get it. You will get it. You will try harder. You will try harder. You will ask somebody. If you need to get it, you will definitely get it. That's the important. That's the approach. Lots of hatzlacha.